So good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Good, good. All right, pull out your top 5 report if you have it. If you don't have it, if you did not fill it out or you don't have your report, what's passing around now is a list of all 34 talents that we assess for. So as we're going through the next few minutes, what I want you to do, if you don't have your top 5 with you today, is look over this and make a guess as to what your top 5 is. And even though you haven't taken it before now, you still have the code in your email. I guess that's how it was sent to you. And you can still take advantage of that. Talk to the organizers if you're not sure what I'm talking about or why I'm here. But today we're going to talk about your particular talents. So this all started not when I worked for the Gallup organization, but when I worked for a newspaper called USA Today, where I worked for 20 years. And I was one of their national managers, and I bought a book called Now Discover Your Strengths. In that book was a code just like the code that you got. I went online and found out what my top 5 were, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. So I bought the book for my whole department, and everyone in my department found out what their top 5 was, and I used that to talk to them about their career and about their development, and I enjoyed doing that so much. I wanted to do it all the time around the world, so 5 years ago, I came over to Gallup, became a certified strengths performance coach and what's called an advanced consultant, and I work on strengths, work with executives, work with leaders around talent, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years, plus I did it at USA Today before I came over, so I'm delighted to be meeting with you. So I just want you to know that 100 teenagers, you don't intimidate me. The reason is because you don't have to. I have 3 teenagers at home, and they intimidate me every single day. But I'm delighted to be here talking to you about your talent. So let's go ahead and jump up into it. Now, you've been listening to a lot of people, a lot of talks, a lot of slides. I want you to know that this is actually going to be interactive. It's not going to be all just me talking and showing you slides. Wouldn't you hate that? So here's what I want you to do right now. Take out a blank sheet of paper. Everybody take out a blank sheet of paper. Take out your top 5 report, and what I want you to do is that I want you to write your top 5 on that sheet of paper in big letters so that it fills the entire sheet of paper, okay? Strength number 1, strength number 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll give you 24.67 seconds to do that. Exactly 24.67 seconds. But I want you to write your strengths in big letters. When you are done writing your strengths in big letters, stand up. When you're done writing your strengths in big letters, stand up. And as you stand up, I also want you to grab what's being passed out, this thing called a Clifton Strengths Finder quick reference card, because in this next thing we're all going to do, you might have to cheat, and this will help you cheat. So write down your top 5 talents in big letters. When you finish that, stand up. Let's see who stands up first. Oh, looks like we have some winners over here. Okay, great. Some really fast writers. Some people holding their strengths high and proud. I like that, high and proud. You don't have to do it. Why is the front of the room so much faster than the back of the room? That doesn't make sense to me. Did they put the smarter kids up at the front? Is that what they did? All right, lift them up. All right, lift them up, lift them up. All right, here's what I want. Let me get on the microphone. Here's what I want you to do next, okay? For the next 7 minutes, I want you to meet as many people as you can, and I want you to look at their top 5 strengths. I want you to decide which one you understand the least, and then I want you to ask the other person how they use it. So, for example, if I were playing, what's your name? Albert, stand up here, please. Would you mind? Thank you. So, Ms. Albert, where's your top 5? So, Ms. Albert has learner, positivity, empathy, futuristic, and restorative. My wife has high positivity. I have low positivity. I was in the newspaper industry for 20 years. So, I have low positivity. So, if I'm going to ask her about that one, I'll say, tell me how you use your positivity. Now, she's going to do one of 3 things. She's either going to, 1, tell me how she uses her positivity, or 2, she might have to cheat, and she goes positivity, positivity, and she looks it up on this cheat sheet. Oh, yeah, I do that, and I do that one. The third thing she might say is,
Hello? There we go.
There we go. Okay. So the third thing, now I feel very powerful. The third thing she might say is, Stephen, to be honest with you, this is the first time I ever thought I had positivity. None of my friends would say I have positivity. And do you know why she might say that? Because Gallup doesn't actually care what she thinks her talents are. So for that reason, we gave her 20 seconds on each one of these 178 questions so that she wouldn't have time to put on top of the assessment what she thinks her talents are. In other words, what we want is a visceral, top-of-mind response, a quick response from her. And because of that, sometimes we're going to find out talents about which you were previously unaware. We're going to find out about some talents. Some of you found out about some of your talents that you didn't know that you had before now, okay? So if she says that about positivity, I'm not going to bug her about it. I'm just going to ask her about another one that she does think she has. Then she's going to tell me how she uses it. Here's the instructions right here. Then she's going to look at my top 5, decide which one of my top 5 that she understands the least, and then she's going to ask me how I use it, and then we're going to go meet somebody else. In other words, it's just like speed dating, okay? Meet as many people as you can in the next 7 to 10 minutes. Go. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, too. For example, is motivated to fix problems, restorative, so that she can be successful, achiever. Her achiever is her driver, and she has a level of confidence about how to do that, and that's because of her command. And then she knows where she wants to go with her achiever because she also has futuristic. So she has a vision for where she would like to go, and she's constantly learning new information with her learner so that she can achieve and get to where she wants to go with her futuristic. There you go. So I don't want you to just look at the top 5 individually. I want you to look at them as they color and flavor one another. How many of you had the experience when somebody was talking about one of their talents and you were looking at all of their top 5 and you thought you heard another one of those talents as they were talking? Some of you experienced that. That's because that's how they actually work in real life. The talents influence one another. So let me talk to you a little bit about talent and what it is that Gallup's been doing for the last 50 years to work on this. So every single one of you right now in this room, in terms of sensory data, okay, the stuff that's coming through your nose, through your mouth, through your ears, through your eyes, the things that you're experiencing, every single girl and person in this room, you're all experiencing the same thing right now. Okay? You all have the same level of light. You're all looking at the same slides. You're all listening to the same sound of my voice. You're all experiencing the same thing. However, if I could see a movie of what's actually going on in all of your brains right now, there would be as many movies as there are people in the room. That's because whereas all of you are going through exactly the same situation, you're all filtering that differently according to your brain, according to the way you're wired. You're filtering that differently, and you all have different emotions, you have different behaviors, things you do, and you have different responses to it, okay? And so one of the best things that can happen to you in the next couple of minutes is just to become aware of this filter that you have and this filter that other people have. Let's say, for example, that we thought this afternoon's agenda was so interesting that you didn't need a single break between now and supper, okay? That we were just going to make you sit there and watch slide after slide after slide. What if we did that? And then what's your name? I caught you right when you were drinking. Yes, what's your name? Katie. And then Katie had mercy on us. Katie's sitting there and she's looking at me. And she's saying, this yo-yo, he's not going to stop talking. I think he's just going to go on until like 6 o'clock. And she decides to go off to the side, and she gets a platter. And she gets soda, she gets water, she gets coffee, she gets tea, and she gets juice. And she's going to spread it out to everybody in the room, okay? So she walks over here, and then she trips, and she falls down, and it goes everywhere. If you had empathy in your top 5, what's your response to Katie? That's right. Oh, I'm sorry, Katie. That's very sad. Let me help you. What if you had activator, which means you have a bias for action? What might your response be to the mess that's on the floor? That's right. Let's go clean that up. What if you had analytical in your top 5? What might your response be? That's right. I wonder what precipitated that spill. Maybe it was a malfunction in the muscle or a malformity in the carpet. That's right. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, folks.
What if you have activator and you're cleaning the mess up? What is your attitude towards the person who is analytical and they're trying to figure out what went wrong? It's like, what's wrong with you? Are you nuts? What we really need to do is clean this mess up. What if you had empathy in your top 5 and you're helping poor Katie? What's your attitude towards the person who's picking up and cleaning up? It's like, what's wrong? What we really need to do is take care of poor Katie, okay? Here's the thing. No one, with the possible exception of analytical, no one in that situation is wrong. We have a tendency to respond to a particular situation, and we have a tendency to think that our response to a situation is the response to a situation. On top of that, we have a tendency to judge others through the filter of our own talents. We want everyone to be empathetic. We want everyone to be activating. We want everyone to be analytical. One of the best things that can happen to you with understanding how talent actually functions is when you accept yourself and when you accept other people, when you have the humility to realize that other people are not like you. They're not wired like you. They're wired really, really differently. And that makes you humble to really listen to what it is that they have to say. That's one of the greatest benefits of really having appreciation of talent and how wildly different all of us are in terms of our talent configuration. So here's our definition of talent. A naturally recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. A naturally recurring, happening over and over again, pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. There's some clues, even if you hadn't taken this assessment, or even if you didn't take the assessment, there's some clues as to what your talents are and what they aren't. If you really like doing something, if something's very enjoyable to you, you have yearning for it, that's an indication that that is an area of talent for you. If you start studying something or you get interested in something and you pick it up really, really quickly, that's an indication that you may have stumbled on some kind of area of talent. This particular word, flow, if you look it up in the dictionary, it just has to do with water, though. But actually, there's a Hungarian psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and you're all like, what the heck did he just say? But this name is actually quite easy to pronounce. Let's all do it right now on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Why am I the only one talking? Actually, we have a 6-week course that we can give you on how to pronounce Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's last name. Anyway, he's a psychologist, and he came up with this idea of flow, okay? And what flow is when you do something without you do it so well you don't even have to think about it. It's something that becomes very, very natural to you. So how many of you know how to play tennis? So the first time that you played tennis, you had to really think about it, right? Or any sport, really. You had to really think about what you were doing. Now, do you have to concentrate on every single move that you make when you play tennis? Everyone should now say no. That's right, you don't. Why? Because you have a bunch of synaptic connections within your brain that's dedicated to the function of doing a forehand or a backhand within tennis. That means you're in flow. When you're working in an area of talent, it's so natural to you, you don't need to think about it that much. It's something that's very, very easy for you, okay? That's what Csikszentmihalyi meant by the word flow. It means you've done it over and over again, or you were wired in your brain to be able to do that in a really easy way. Another indication, and this connects back to the fact that when you're working in an area of talent, you really like it. After you do something that's in an area of talent, you want to do it again. You get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And finally, when you get feedback from others, when other people tell you that's something that you really did well, sometimes you won't know that you're talented in a particular area because you're working in flow until somebody else tells you, yeah, that's something that you're really, really good at. In fact, I think you're better at that than other people. That's an indication that you're working in an area of talent, okay? So there are 34 themes that for the last 50, 60 years that we've analyzed that are talent themes that people can have. As I said, we've been working on this for a while. Before we launched this, we're Gallup polls, so we have the ability to ask a lot of people a lot of questions. So before we launched this, so that we had a good list of talents, we interviewed 2 million people to find out what the different kinds of talents are. And I just checked last week. Now, as of last week, 8.8 million people have taken this assessment. In fact, if today is a normal day, between midnight last night and midnight tonight, 5,000 more people will have found out what their particular talents are. So this is something that a lot of people are getting into. We do it in over 50 countries, and we do it in over 20 languages. So we're building a vocabulary of accomplishment, a vocabulary of success. That's what StrengthsFinder is intended to be, and that's why we're so excited to be working here with Girl Up. So where does your talent come from? Well, as I mentioned, it comes from the way your brain's wired. So let me talk about that for a second. So 42 days after conception, the first neuron in the brain is created. And then 120 days later, your brain goes from having one neuron to having 100 billion neurons, being made at a rate of 9,500 neurons per second. And then right before birth, actually 60 days before birth, the first neuron reaches out to the second neuron and makes the first synaptic connection. That synaptic connection is where your desires are, it's where your talents are, is where your likes and your dislikes are, okay? Then between birth minus 60 days and the age of 3, every single one of these 100 billion neurons develops not just one synaptic connection, but neurologists estimate between 10 and 14,000 synaptic connections, every one of them. That means in the brain of a 3-year-old, if we lowball that estimate, in the brain of a 3-year-old are 100 billion times 10,000 synaptic connections. More synaptic connections in the brain of a 3-year-old than astronomers estimate there are stars in the universe. And then something completely unique happens in terms of the development of human organs. Half of those connections go away. That's why between the ages of 3 and 16, you want to expose yourself to as many things as you possibly can, because you want to find out those areas where your brain is wired to help you be successful. So Michael Jordan was great at basketball, but when he tried to play baseball, he was only able to become an average baseball player. But he tried different things. Well, that's why when you're between the ages of 3 and 16, that's why you want to try as many things as you possibly can, because there are 3 things that will determine which synaptic connections remain by the time you turn 16. One is the things you're exposed to, all the activities you do. 2 are the choices that you make of what you want to focus on or are going to focus on between the ages of 3 and 16. And 3 is your biology itself, is the neurological, what's going on neurologically within your brain. So that's why this period in your life, for many of you, I know some of you are older than 16, this period, actually I was just working with with a neuroscience team a week ago, and this ability for the brain to change is called neuroplasticity. A plastic is a substance that can easily be molded, and neuro has to do with neurons, okay? So neuroplasticity means the brain can change, and he was telling me recent research indicates that this period of development actually goes into your late 20s. So this is the time when you can really actually improve and widen the highways, the pathways of your brain, the pipes that you have within your brain dedicated to particular types of talent, okay? All right, so Dr. Shugani talks about the importance of what you focus on during this time period. He said that the roads that you focus on, the roads with the most traffic, that's the way he's talking about these synaptic connections. He said they have a tendency to get wider. In other words, by what you choose, you can actually make those pathways within your brain stronger. You can make them actually stronger. The ones that you don't use are the ones that go away. In other words, it truly is use it or lose it. Use it or lose it. And you can't focus on everything, and you don't want to. What you want to do is try a lot of things to decide that's an area where I can focus. I was certifying some strengths performance coaches in San Diego, and there was a guy there who had won a gold medal in the Olympics for beach volleyball. And in the 90s, after I talked to him and found out what he did, I actually looked him up online and found out in the 90s he was considered one of the best beach volleyball players in America during the 90s. And when he was younger, when he was a high school student, he played basketball, he played football, he played baseball, and he played volleyball. And he made a decision. He said, I like all of these, but where can I dominate? Where can I dominate? Where do I think I can be the strongest? And so he could have kept focusing on all of those. He decided to focus on beach volleyball. And that's where he ended up being successful. So you want to try a lot of things, and then you want to focus on something that you really like. You want to focus on something where you get feedback you're good on that, and you want to focus on something that seems to work really well for you, okay? That's important. So the question is then, how can you improve your talent? How can you improve your talent? Well, in terms of accomplishment, talent is not enough. In terms of what you act, the thing that every single person in this room has, all of you have top 5 talents. All of you are very unique in terms of your talent configuration, in terms of how you're wired, but that is not enough. It's necessary, but insufficient for accomplishment. It's necessary, but insufficient for accomplishment. There are some things that you have to add to talent to turn it actually into a strength. And the confession is that sometimes Gallup people in our books, we talk about talent and strengths as if they're the same thing. They're actually not the same thing. What you want to do is to turn a raw talent into an accomplished strength. And the way you do that is that you pick up some skills. So I had a professor when I was in graduate school, okay? He was a really great writer, but he was of certain age. I mean, this would be unthinkable today. He was of a certain age, and he's now in his 70s, okay? That even though he was a great writer and had written and published many books, he did not know how to type. And typing is an example of a skill. 2 differences between a talent and a skill. One is a talent is something that you want to do. A skill is something that you don't necessarily like doing. The second biggest difference is that anyone can learn a skill. Anyone can learn a skill. For example, not anyone can be taught to be a great writer, to write fantastic novels or fantastic pieces for the web. Not anyone can do that, but anyone can learn how to write. That's something that anyone of average intelligence can learn how to do. So that's the first difference between a talent and a skill is desire. The second difference is that a skill can be taught. A talent cannot be taught. A talent cannot be taught. The second thing that you have to add to talent to turn it into a strength is knowledge. And there are 2 kinds of knowledge. There's the kind of knowledge that you get from books, that you get from classes, that you get from documentaries. And then there's the kind of knowledge that you only get by being with someone or by going through something. There's a reason why you were all flown here or driven here or trained here or whatever to be together, because we could have all the information transfer, all the lectures, all the data, everything. We could have all done this online. But there's something that we get just by being together, by eating together, by going through the same experiences. That in and of itself is important for learning. So there are 2 kinds of knowledge, what you can read and what you can experience that you can add to talent to turn it into a strength. But in my opinion, the most important thing to turn a talent into strength is your ability to choose, which is how you choose to spend your time and effort so that you can turn your talent into strength. Michelangelo one day was with his mentor, and his mentor got mad at him because he made a sculpture and it was subpar. And he took the sculpture and he threw it on the ground, and he said to Michelangelo, he said, talent is cheap, dedication is costly. Talent is cheap, dedication is costly. Every single one of you have talents, but those talents are only worth something if we invest them. That's why I'm so encouraged that you're here, that you've decided to make a choice to try to help 600 million girls in developing countries. You've already made that first choice. But it's going to be a choice that you have in your life with regards to this and everything you want to accomplish. It's a choice you have to make every day because there are going to be setbacks. In fact, I'd like you to repeat this after me. I will experience setbacks. Say it with me. I will experience setbacks. One more time with gusto. I will experience setbacks. That's right. Every single one of you will experience setbacks. We've actually studied this. What are the differences between optimists and pessimists? And interestingly, one of our scientists, a gentleman named Dr. Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania, used to be the president of the American Psychological Association. He studied the difference between pessimists and optimists. In fact, I'll tell you this. I wasn't going to tell you this, but I will. He studied 500 students through their freshman year through their senior year. And he looked at their high school grades, their SAT scores, their IQ, their socioeconomic status, and he gave them an assessment as to how hopeful they were. And then he measured their grades freshman all the way through the senior year. And he found that the greatest predictor of academic success was not their grades, it was not their SAT scores, it was not their IQ scores, it was how they did on this hope assessment. Because hope is the thing that will keep you going when you fail. Hope is the thing that will keep you going when you experience a setback. Hope is the thing that will help you to be successful. What he discovered was the primary difference between optimists and pessimists was not that optimists woke up in the morning and said, "It's going to be a bright and shiny day." That was not the main difference. The main difference was how they handled bad stuff that happened in their lives. Whether they took the bad stuff and they did what he calls catastrophizing it. Oh, that's completely awful. Or whether they were able, well, you know, that happened, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm not going to let that keep me back. And ladies, you have talents. Every single one of you has talents. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't accomplish something, because you are uniquely wired to accomplish quite a bit. Does that make sense? What I want you to think about. Look at your top 5. Let's say that 3 years from now, you are wildly successful. 3 years from now, you are wildly successful. Which one of your top 5 talents was your secret weapon that helped you to become so successful? I want you to think about this. Which one of your top 5 talents do you think is your secret weapon? They're all great, but what's one of them that you go, you know, I think that's my go-to? I'll tell you my go-to. It's my number one. My number one talent is input. Anybody else got number one input? See, you'd be great Gallup consultants, all of you. Okay, no, I'm kidding. My number one talent is input. And because of input, I've worked in technology, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in customer service, I've worked in operations. And for the last 5 years, I've been a management consultant working with executives. And why? Because I have a voracious appetite for learning. I love to learn. I just got my first iPad. I know you can't believe it's taken me so long, but I got my first iPad 2 days ago, and I'm like in input heaven with my iPad, because I can read all my subscriptions. I got my Kindle app. I can read all my books, and you know that's just heaven for me. And that's one thing that has helped me to be successful, because I love to learn. I love to collect information. All of you have a go-to talent. So here's what I want you to do next. I want you to choose a partner in the room. Choose someone at your table that's going to be your partner. And I want you to interview one another with these questions. The first question is, which one did you choose? Which one of your top 5 is your secret weapon? The second question is, what is one thing you could add to that talent to make it a strength? Now, what am I talking about, one thing? Is it a skill, some behavior, something you need to learn that you don't know how to do, that you could learn to do, that would help you turn your talent into a strength? Or is it stuff you don't know that you need to learn? Or is it some experience that you've never had that you need to go through? Or is there is no war, that's it. How are you going to choose to spend your time and effort to turn that one talent into a strength? So find a partner. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So I'll give you that's going to be 4 minutes. So I'll tell you when you have 2 minutes left. When I say 2 minutes left, interview in the other direction, okay? So find a partner, interview that person with these questions. I'll tell you when you have 2.5 minutes left, and then I want you to interview in the other direction. Go. So here's what's really important for sessions like this. We do not want this to be something that's just giving you information and go, oh, that's really interesting and that was fun. My success criterion for something like this is what you're doing differently 3 months from now. Whenever I have a conversation like this, I'm interested in how this changes your behaviors, changes what you're doing. And I say the same thing to executives. I say the same thing to managers when I work with them in the corporate world. So to that end, we gave you this thing called a potential action item. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to shut up for 90 seconds, and I want you to capture your conversation. And specifically what I want you to write down is, I might do this, I might do this, I might do this. And I want you to write down as many things that you might do differently. In other words, I'm going to learn this, I might experience this, or maybe this is a skill that I want to pick up. I just want you to write down as many things as you can possibly think of. I'm going to try, depending on how we're doing on time, we're going to do this 2 or 3 times in the next few minutes. And then when we're done, at the end of the day or whenever you have a time to look at it, look at this and decide what are a few things you are going to do. But what I want you to do right now is think in terms of might. I might do this, I might do this, I might do this. The goal is quantity, not quality. Write down as many skills you might learn, things that you need to know that you don't know, or experiences that you need to go through, okay? 90 seconds, go. So let's talk about applying your talents. It's one thing to add things to your talent to turn it into strengths. Where are you going to point your talents? There's all kinds of ways and all kinds of directions where you could point your talents, okay? And you're very uniquely wired to do this. You're very uniquely wired to do this. What do you think are the chances of your meeting someone with your top 5 in any order? 1 in 278,000. What are your talents are listed in order of what's called thematic intensity. In other words, your number 1 is your number 1. That is your strongest thing. Your number 2 is your next strongest thing, and all through the top 5, okay? What do you think the chances are of your meeting someone with your top 5 in the same order? The chances are 1 in 33.39 million. Ladies, you are striving to serve 600 million girls in developing countries. There are 18 girls in those 600 million girls that have the same top 5 as you in the same order. We actually have a list of those, so as you're leaving today, we'll tell you the 8. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But here's the deal. There is no one wired. There's not no one. There are very few people wired just like you. You are uniquely talented to do things that only you can do with your particular talents. Okay, it's not that we don't drop you in a bucket with this thing. What we're really doing with this type of assessment, we're telling you how unique and beautiful you really are and what you can accomplish. And that's something important for all of you to recognize. You have something very important that you yourself are uniquely wired to be able to do. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're really geeky at Gallup, and somebody asked me the other day, they said, one of my clients actually, it was a government client, and they said, what's the chances of meeting someone, because we rank order all of your 34 talents in order, okay? And someone asked, what's the chances of meeting someone with your full 34 in the same order? All full 34 in the same order. And here's the answer. It's 1 in 295.2 undecillion. And there's a reason you've never heard the word undecillion. So that made me wonder one time, I was wondering, and we were emailing over the weekend, is that more people than has ever been born? So one weekend I spent time in extensive research, which means I used Google, and I Googled and tried to find out how many people have ever lived on Earth. And shockingly, based on what I Googled, I found this article called How Many People Have Ever Lived on Earth? And the highly speculative answer is 106 billion, which means depending on how long the sun shines, there never has been, nor will there ever be, someone just like you. You're utterly and completely unique. And your top 5 talents gives you an indication of how really unique you are. So here's what I want you all to think about, ladies. I want you to think about one thing. What is one goal that you personally would like to accomplish in the next year? What is one goal that you personally would like to accomplish in the next year? I'm going to give you 11.789 seconds to think about that. One goal you'd like to accomplish in the next year. Just think about it. All right. Now I want you to find a new partner. Find a new partner, not the same person you just talked to, but somebody else at your table. And I want you to interview one another with these questions. What's your goal? What's the thing you just thought of? Okay. How could you use one or more of your top 5 strengths to accomplish that goal? How could you use one or more of your top 5 strengths to accomplish that goal? This shouldn't take as long, so I'll give you 90 seconds each way. So I'll tell you when you have a minute and a half left, and you should ask the question in the other direction. Go. What about my weaknesses? What about my weaknesses? Take out a blank sheet of paper. Why are you groaning? Don't groan. All right, we're going to have a contest. Here's the contest. I'm going to show you a sentence, and I want you all to write it down as many times. This is not punishment. I want you to write it down as many times as you can in 40 seconds. And then I'm going to find out who's written it the most times. However, I will ask the person, if you claim that you wrote it the most times, I'm going to ask the person beside you to make sure they can read it, that it's legible. Okay? So let me get my stopwatch. I'm going to give you 40 seconds, and I'll show you the sentence right here, and you can start. Everybody ready? On your mark, get set. Oh, I forgot something. Use your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, use your left hand. If you're I'm sorry. I always forget that. Use your non-dominant hand. Okay? I'm sorry. On your mark, get set, go. Now, if you need to use the back of the sheet, that's okay. And if you need any extra paper, just let us know. Plenty of time. You got 22 seconds. $15 seconds. 5 seconds. 2, 1. You're done. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. Did anybody write it 5 times? No, not even 5 times. Did anybody write it 4 times? No. Anybody write it 3 times? 3 times. Ladies, check to make sure you can read what they wrote beside them. 3 legible. Has to be legible. Can you read it? All 3 times. If the person beside you, you can read it, raise your hand. All right, let's give them a hand. Good job. Now, let me ask you a question. In your academic career, how big a problem has it been that you're all very weak at writing with your non-dominant hands? Has it been relevant? No. Do you know what every person shares in this room? In our database, which has, as I said, 8.8 million people, everybody has a bottom 5. Everybody has weaknesses. Your weaknesses are mostly irrelevant. They're mostly irrelevant. I did not say they're entirely irrelevant. I said they're mostly irrelevant. If you want to be average, focus on your weaknesses. If you want to be fantastic, focus on your strengths and manage around your weaknesses. If you want to just be average, then focus on the things you're really bad at. Spend all your time thinking about that, and that'll help you get to average. If you want to be amazing, if you want to be excellent, if you want to be fantastic, you're not going to get there by focusing on your weaknesses. You're going to get there by focusing on what you're good at, on focusing on your strengths. That's where you're going to be successful. That's where you're going to really get to where you want to go. And that's how you're going to put yourself in a place where you can really help the 600 million girls in developing countries. Thank you all very much.